Welcome to the Next Level podcast. I'm super excited for the guests we have on the episode this week, Adam and Jeffrey Groom with Stratorsoft. Now, I've known Adam for a number of years. We go back to our time with Lonellis too, and I hold him in very high esteem as a leader, as a intellectually just aspirational individual in the security industry, always pushing things to a higher level, always looking to innovate and doing so with the way that with the humble finesse that I just really love and enjoy and appreciate and try to model myself. And then Jeff is a breath of fresh air into our industry. You'll hear him talk about some of his experience in other industries and verticals that he's interact with from a technological perspective, trying to bring some of that innovation into the security space. And they've done that. When you hear us talk a little bit about what Stratorsoft has done with Rex AI and some of the other things that they have in mind and in store for the security industry. So without further ado, welcome to the episode, Next Level with Adam and Jeff Groom. Welcome back, or welcome to the Next Level podcast. I'm your host, John Harris. And as always, I'm bringing to you some next level leaders from the security industry, whether it's leadership, technology, innovation. We're going to bring you some interesting discussions, some folks who are leading from the front. And today will be no different than that. I'm honored and humbled and excited to have Jeffrey and Adam Groom from Stratorsoft. I'm just going to let them do their intros and tell you a little bit about them, about their company, kind of where they've come from, where they're going, and a little bit about the innovation that they're doing and the impact on the security industry. So Jeffrey, let's start with you, man. A little bit about your background and kind of how you got into the security technology in the first place.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having us on, John. Appreciate it. So yeah, a little bit about my background. I'm not what most people would consider a security insider. I think I've been in the industry for maybe 5 years now, but my path was a little bit different than most. So um, my formal background is in electronics engineering and computer science. I started my career as a mobile phone electronics design engineer for Motorola back in the original Razor phone days. And I got very focused on the camera technology, imaging technology. So cameras were actually new in cell phones back then. It was a new thing. And worked there for a while, and then made my way to Silicon Valley, worked for one of the largest CMOS image sensor manufacturers in the world. And so they made the chips that go in the cameras, like in your phones and things like that, and got really heavy into imaging. Worked in the consumer space, then went into automotive, did a lot of groundbreaking imaging applications in automotive. And at the end of my automotive career, I got into doing a lot of artificial intelligence where we were creating maps of the road networks, 3D models of maps of the road networks in North America so that they could be implanted in self-driving vehicles. And so around that time, I got real big into machine learning and deep neural networks and artificial intelligence, and then decided that I wanted to do my own thing about 5 or 6 years ago, and partnered with Adam. And funnily enough, when we started, we really wanted to be AI, like really AI centric, AI focused. And I don't think that the general marketplace wasn't really quite ready for that. It was still very specialized. This was pre-Chat GPT days, and people didn't really know about it. And so when I partnered with Adam, Adam obviously has a lot of experience in the security space. So we sort of targeted that as one of our main avenues of business. And then I got really into all of the systems and systems integration and learning about APIs that exist in security. And so, yeah, one thing led to another. And I mean, we could talk about it in depth later, but now we're sort of coming full circle with Rex.ai, and we're very, very focused on AI and its application in security. And yeah, we think it has potential to be very revolutionary and a game changer. So that's me in a nutshell.
I love it, man. And I happen to think that a diverse comprehensive background like yours is a differentiator in the security space. We often have some preconceived notions and limiting beliefs of what can and can't be done. Uh, and obviously the different spaces that you explored. And there's a friend of mine named Kabir who works for a company called Passive Bolt that was spun out of Continental Automotive, right? And so I think about like planes and automobiles as already having a breadth of technology that can be applied to the building that people just don't think about, right? Doors that open,
Yeah.
things are connected, IoT devices, mapping, like spatial awareness, it's all there already. It just takes the leap over, from kind of jumping the third rail over to the next rail, which is security, to say, oh, we could do this here too. But before I jump over and let Adam dive in a little bit of his background, what are your thoughts on that? Do you feel that perspective of a quote unquote outsider allows you to have kind of a differentiating advantage when it comes to applying especially innovative technology into the security space?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that goes for anything really, not just security, but I mean, the fact that a lot of people that come up in it from the very beginning, have a certain way of thinking. And I think that that's true of anything. You sort of, you know what you know, and it's comfortable, right? And so for me, um, I don't, yeah, I'm not, I would say I'm not limited by that. I might not be as much of an expert as everyone else, but I definitely approach things differently with the way I look at the technology and how to solve problems. So I think that's an advantage that we have. And then of course we have Adam, who has the huge, breadth and depth of knowledge and domain knowledge in the security space. So I think it plays well together to have sort of an insider's view and an outsider's view working together. Absolutely.
100%. So with that, Adam, Jeffrey alluded to it. You've been around in the industry for a while. You and I had cross paths back in our Linnell S2 days and had a chance to work with each other ever so briefly. But tell us a little bit about your background, kind of how you got into security in the first place, and then maybe the little bit of the windy road that you've traveled to get into the Stratorsoft role you're in now.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, John, thanks for having us. We look at you as a leader within the industry. We also are very humbled to be on your podcast. So we're looking forward to this today. What I was going to say, actually, while you and Jeff were having that conversation, I was having some of my own thoughts. So before I go into my intro, as you know, the physical security industry is very interesting because probably like a lot of industries, it's very nuanced, and there's a lot of things that you learn just by being part of the industry.
Mm.
So there's this dynamic where if you are a technologist that's outside of the industry and you try to come in and apply technology, but you don't have any domain experience, I think it can be very challenging. And Jeff alluded to it. We just coincidentally, decided to pursue an industry where I have a little bit of knowledge, and then he can bring outside technology, and it pairs very nicely. And I think it gives us some advantages, specifically in application of innovative technology in the space. But with that being said, Adam Groom, I've been in the industry for maybe going on 18, 19 years now. Took a pretty interesting path. I was actually hired by Ingersoll Rand at the time, which is known as Allegiant today, through their first sales leadership program. They were going around and they were hiring recent grads from state schools, and they were putting them into this development program where we would spend a certain amount of months learning the manufacturing side of the business. And at the time, they were making acquisitions in the security integrator space as well. So they also gave us some exposure to not only the manufacturing side, but the integration side of the business. And it was very advantageous way to kind of cut my teeth within the industry, but see it from multiple sides and really understand what was going on. After Ingersoll Rand, I went to work for Assa Abloy, which is obviously was one of their main competitors and one of Allegiant's competitors. Eventually made my way over to S2. Wanted to get a little bit closer to the software side of things and the platform side of things. Worked at S2 for quite a while. Was very fortunate to experience the acquisition of S2 by Linnell at the time. They were actually owned by United Technology Corporation. Hung on with them for a little bit, and it afforded us the opportunity start our business, which is Stratorsoft today. And so here we are, trying to bring transformation to the industry, and hopefully we can revolutionize it with some of the stuff that we're interested in working on.
Yeah, I love that. And Adam, thank you for sharing that background, because I think, one of the things that I love, all the guests that I have on the show, no two paths into the industry are the same. And one thing that stood out to me about yours, and it reminds me a bit of mine, I was at United Technologies pre S2 acquisition. I was on the aerospace and defense side, and I too benefited from a early leadership development program that the company had. And it's probably, I mean, I don't know if I think with big companies it's probably rather common. And like we had we had one for finance, one for operations, and then one just for, kind of any emerging leader that they wanted to put in it. And I was a security manager at the time. I went into that, and I took for granted at the time the amount of leadership and development training that was invested into me by United Technologies. It was, in probably the 30 to 40, $50,000 a year of investment into me to become a better professional, a better leader. I mean, it was some of the stuff I had access to. I just thought, as a naive, early career person, like, this is just what it's like. And then I changed companies, and I've never had that experience ever again. And that's one of the reasons why I do what I do, is so anybody can have access to that type of leadership development coursework through, hearing discussions like what we're going to have here, and ones we've had in the past, and the content and things that I put out. It's because, like, I come to find it's actually very unique. It's very rare to get that level. And it sounds like that's what you had at Ingersoll. Tell me a little bit about the long term positive impacts of getting that early exposure, and kind of that development that I think, too few people actually have the opportunity to participate in.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I agree with you 100%, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I had through that leadership development program. And it took me a long time to realize that, but I think about it frequently today, because I try to go back. And when I first started, I've always had an entrepreneurial itch. I always wanted to start a business. I've tried to start many businesses. And when I look back on it, like, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to do that. And I had to go through this path where, I needed the hand holding. I needed the development training. I needed to be put in situations that I didn't even know, were going to be there, and try to handle those. And I learned so much through, I spent many years. I spent probably a good 10 years of my career or more before I was really even ready to even, take action on trying to start a business. And I look back at that, and what I tell myself and what I tell others is, you really have to just pause and step back. And when you're in the moment, think about what you're going to be able to learn, and what you're going to be able to apply, even if it's not exactly what you want to be doing at that moment in time. And again, I think, like, all of that stuff, definitely the leadership program at Ingersoll Rand contributed to where we are today. And I think it's very important for all the listeners to understand, and for you to understand too, John. Like, we're far from making it as entrepreneurs. Like, we are right in the middle of it right now. I think oftentimes when entrepreneurs are on podcasts, like, they've made it and they're telling their success stories, and they're telling people, like, how they did it. Like, we're still in the early innings. We're still at the front side of that thing. And it's a challenge, but again, no matter what's happening to me at a certain point in time in my life, I really try to take a step back and be like, there's a purpose for this, even if I can't see it right now. And those early days were huge contributors to where we are today.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And often, we forget about that. I just recently, I have a journal I write in every morning, and reminding myself to ask myself the question, what am I meant to learn from this? There, and it can be tough, right? Like, things get challenging, get frustrated. I mean, again, I've been kind of participatory in the Stratorsoft journey over the last 2 years as you guys have been going through and kind of in different iterations of what you're doing and what you're developing. And like, and I'm sure there was times where you're like, we got it. Like we finally did it. We finally figured it out. And then boom, and, the bottom drops out and it's like, shit,
You,
no, we did it. And then,
you,
and life is up and down, but entrepreneurialism is even more up and down. And I appreciate the kind of the authenticity for you guys to share that and know that it's, that it is challenging. It isn't there's no such thing as an overnight success. And the world will see a minuscule percentage of what it actually takes for you guys to be successful and whatever success looks like for you guys, right? I mean, because that also, I equate success to freedom. So when I have the freedom to do the things I want, where I want, with whom I want, that's success. I don't necessarily associate a revenue amount or something like that. Though it's a byproduct of that, right? Let's be honest. Like, you have to make a certain amount of money to enable the kind of things that allow you to do that. But success isn't $1 million, $1 billion exit. Though that might be great and be a part of the equation. It's really the ability to do things on your terms when you come to being an entrepreneur, in my opinion. So with that, maybe Jeff, we can swing back over to you for a second. As you've, what have you found to be kind of the most interesting and exciting part of your journey, kind of early journey in the last 5 years into the security industry? As you've learned more from it, learned from your brother, learned from people that you've got to partner and work with, kind of what do you find maybe the most frustrating, and then what do you find the most endearing or exciting about it?
Oh man, that's a great question. I have very controversial opinions about this because I think the answer is kind of two sides of the same coin. One thing that is frustrating is that I have a very black and white view that the technology lags by maybe 10 years, maybe even more than 10 years, right? But the flip side of that coin is that the exciting part is that it's sort of like an untapped, gold mine to get into if you really want to bring if you want to affect change and bring to bear, innovation and new ideas. So, I mean, that's sort of my view of it. I try not to come across too arrogant, but a lot of people question like, oh, if you've only been in the industry this long, how are you able to do these things? I mean, one thing is I'm a very quick study, and I think that going back to this notion of being an outsider, we talk about like if we think about just like systems integration and all the disparate systems that we have in the security space, like fundamentally at a low level, they work the same way. When you talk about things like APIs, those work exactly the same way for the most part, conceptually and fundamentally, that APIs work in other spaces, right? So like for me, the knowledge transfer is very easy to bring it from one space to the security space. And so, I mean, that part is very exciting because I feel like I can bring things that maybe people aren't thinking about yet in security to this space from a technological standpoint. And I mean, it's also just been exciting learning the industry in general. Adam has taught me a lot. I've just been involved in so many meetings that I just start to absorb and pick things up. I mean, I know so much more now than I did when we first started. I think the technology part is the easy part for me. Like learning all the nuances and how the ecosystem works and like how the business works and who the different players are and the components. I think that's the part that you have to learn. I think 5 years has been enough time that I have a pretty good handle on it, but I still defer to Adam to be the ultimate subject matter expert. But yeah, I mean, so it's one and the same to me. The frustration and the excitement sort of stems from the same place, if that makes sense.
John checking in with you. And I want to remind you, if you don't know, Apex Performance has coaching and training and online courses available for you, made by security professionals for security professionals to help you take your leadership to the next level. So if you like the content we put in our podcast, if you're interested in learning more about what we do, click the link in the show notes or go to apexperformance.one. That's ONE, because we're number one. Learn more about what we do. Love to work with you. Now back to the show. Yeah, 100%. Well put. And I think that, what what I think when I I've had interactions with you, Jeff, and not once have I been like arrogance is the, I think what's come off to me is kind of a cool calmness, a directness, like a no bullshit, but not in a way that's offensive. And what I want to acknowledge you for is a respect to the industry, which is what I think creates the reciprocal engagement. And I'll tell you what I mean by that in a little bit more depth. You're not wrong at all with your assessment of the frustration and the value. And too often, individuals that would be in your position would come in and talk about this dinosaur industry, and we're going to disrupt it. And we're going to, fuck everything up and kill it all because it's stupid. Then no one wants to fucking talk to them. And it's the stupidest shit ever. And it's like, why would you do that? Yeah, like, cool, you're not Elon Musk. You're not gonna come in and fucking buy Twitter and do whatever the fuck you want. Like, it doesn't, like, that's so far away. I mean, could someone do that? Could some billionaire who is created, by the next IPO come in and do that? Maybe, but there's not one company that holds a stranglehold on our industry to the same extent that like Twitter does on social media. So the alternative way is to come in and say, hey, I want to learn, and hey, I'm interested, and I want to participate. I want to be part of it. Like, I see so many startups come and go or get gobbled up by, some big company that just shoves them off to the side because of their arrogance. I mean, one of the things, speaking back about S2, like John Moss is like, he is just an amazing serial entrepreneur who's just built, like, people don't even know the kind of stuff that he's put together in this industry. And I've only had a chance to talk to him very minuscule time when at the like sales kickoff, and I don't remember what it was, like 2019 or something like that, when we were all in Florida. But there's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it. And I think you guys are doing it, in my opinion, my biased opinion, the right way of, respect, but also not allowing the legacy industry norms to hold you back. And this whole like, well, it can't be done that way, right? And so with that, let's shift and talk about. I want to talk about Rex AI. I want to talk about what you guys have put out, and maybe Adam, you can explain, like, what is it that you guys have developed, and why is it so, why do you think it's so revolutionary or meaningful or novel for the industry?
Yeah, and before I answer your question directly, I want to just give a little bit of context. So when we started our business, we started our business with the idea of bringing high quality software development services to the physical security industry, and really positioned ourselves as a professional services or custom solution provider. So even today, a large majority of our business is still on the professional services side. And why I'm giving this context is because we always felt that, if we were able to successfully run a professional services business, we would expose ourselves to even a better level of understanding where there's opportunity within the industry where we can then bring a product to market. And Rex.ai was not the first product that we attempted to bring to market. Just actually, I want to say maybe about 6 months ago now, we tried to bring a data analytics product to market and really enable the physical security practitioner to leverage the data that was being produced by their physical security technology infrastructure. And it was a very interesting experience in a lot of different ways, but I would say that it probably wasn't really successful. And there's different reasons that we could talk about if that's interesting. But we actually kind of stumbled upon Rex.ai and what is Rex today, and it really has just received a tremendous amount of positive response. So what we've done, and Jeff might be a better person to actually talk about it, but we've created a what's called an agentic AI, which is a generative AI solution that essentially allows anyone who's interfacing with any type of physical security system to do it through natural language and in a natural language way. And when OpenAI brought ChatGPT to the world, it was a very interesting time in where a consumer was able to actually understand like an application for artificial intelligence and how it was relatable to them. And so we've kind of leveraged some of that stuff. But if you think about it just generally, and it was kind of an aha moment for Jeff and I, just a little while ago. We said, look, like, if there's a way that we can create an experience for someone to interact not only with one system but across different systems and do it through natural language, like, think of how much value you could potentially be creating with that. And ultimately, one of the biggest problems that Rex solves is we're allowing individuals and operators of these systems to do very complex things on their systems where they maybe never will get the knowledge to be able to do it through the actual visual user interface, right? And that in itself is just transformational if you think about it. So anyway, at a high level, that's what Rex is. It's a natural language interface. It's just like, the experience is just like Chat GPT, and you can pretty much ask your system to do anything or to send you anything relative to data or information. And it's pretty cool. We think we have something special.
I think pretty cool is an understatement. And Jeff, I want to point this to you and circle back to something you said before. When you were talking about the starting of Stratorsoft and you guys wanting to focus on AI, machine learning, and bringing that into the industry, you made a point to say we weren't ready for it yet. And there's a couple of things that you said that I adamantly agree with, and I want to tease out of what we've discussed so far. The security industry tends to lag general technology adoption by 10 to 15 years. You usually see things in consumer and or residential security technology a decade before you see the adoption in traditional enterprise security. And there's always this fear of, well, it's not safe enough, it's not secure enough. When people's lives are on the line, you can't put in stuff that's not going to work. Where, I mean, if you're going to put a Ring doorbell on your home, like, what's more meaningful? My family and what I'm doing to secure them, or the corporate office, right? And so cloud and AI chatbots for services that I support with my family, like, all those things have been, so it's just like kind of bridging the chasm between those two things. It takes a while, but the adoption of the two things have happened. I think the generational shift from the buyer persona that is in the driver's seat for the security industry has changed, and that there's more stakeholders involved, and IT is more involved, and they've been using these types of technologies for the last decade. So they're not as apprehensive for green lighting them. So that's one thing. And then two, I think, again, the universal adoption of ChatGPT for people to say, like, I just used it this morning. Like, I literally will ask it, like, I use it as a personal assistant and as in the meaning of, like, if I need to, like, and kind of like a almost digital mentor of, like, I'm this, I'm trying to come up with this. Give me some examples of how I can solve this problem. And it just helps me collect my ideas. And I've developed such a customized persona in my ChatGPT that it knows me, and it can help me configure the answers towards what I want. So with that, you guys have now created a system that conceptually can allow security operators to do that across. I mean, in this use case, I see unlimited use cases for this, but specifically the nut you guys have cracked is, help me figure out how to do this for my security system, my access control system, whatever the case is. So what was that, Jeff? What was that aha moment like? How, walk me through, like, how did you really hone in on, like, this is the thing we can solve right now, and it's and maybe juxtaposed to the data analytic solution you brought to market, which I want to circle back to also, because I think there's maybe a convergence point between those two items in the not near future. But Jeff, tell me about that. How did that come through? How did you bring it, idea, like, how did that all come to fruition?
Yeah, well, I love the origin story of Rex and Rex.ai because, like we talked about, when we first started Stratorsoft, we wanted to be an AI company because I wanted to work on AI. That was the reason. Like, we wanted to find we're going to find anything where AI is going to work. And that didn't work. But with Rex, it was completely organic. We didn't sit down and say, we're going to do an AI play in security. Actually, what happened was, and this is a bit of folklore now, how this sort of came up. But what happened was this thing called RAG is all the rage in generative AI, which RAG, for people that don't know, it's retrieval augmented generation, where you give the AI some context. It's basically like you can chat with your documents, you can chat with your PDF files, you can chat with your Microsoft Word files. And so through discussions with through conversations with customers, I was like, I want to do better than RAG. I want to chat with my database. So the origin of Rex was, how can I chat with my database? I want to build something where I can chat with a database. And I wasn't even thinking about access control. I was thinking about your conventional relational databases. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, you know what? We can do one better than that. I want to chat with my access control system. So I had like this, I just had this storm going on in my brain of all these things you could do, right? And then all of a sudden I realized, well, I don't want to just chat with it. Like, we're in the business of building like high fidelity technical systems that actually create interoperability between systems in physical security. Like, that's what we do. That's one of our core competencies. And like, actually, this is just what I want for myself. Like, I want something that takes away the pain of all these things that I see with our customers, where they want to like move data from disparate system A to disparate system B that's in physical security. Like, why can't we just, build something that's more efficient? And like, all of a sudden it was like, well, we can. The technology is there right now. And you try to talk about it and people don't really get it. So I was like, fuck this. I'm going to just go build it. I'm going to build this. And when people see it working, it's going to be a different thing for them instead of just talking about it. And so what I have a couple things to say. I'm going to like quote the Jeff Bezos thing here. I think coming up with an idea isn't the hard part. Like, execution is the hard part. So even with our version of Rex, we've been through so much that people don't see. They just see the stuff that's on LinkedIn, like look at it working. But we went through the conventional stuff. Like, how can we use, commercial off the shelf stuff? Like, how can we just do this really quick to market? Like, how can we sit down? And it turns out like that's not really easy to do, because you have a lot of intricacies with how do you gain access to physical security systems and things like that. So the idea was, okay, well, we can build our own thing that knows about everything, that knows how to how to authenticate, that knows how to gain access. And that's sort of, and then I sat down, for a long time, and there were days and days and days where I didn't sleep, and I'm like, I'm going to build this. And what I like about it is that I also had this, I got to some point where I had enough momentum where I'm like, I'm not just going to build like a quick and dirty prototype. I'm going to do concept validation to show that this can scale. And I think that that's very important. So another aha moment I had was like, I want to show that this can work in the ways that I think it can work, that I can run it on cost-effective hardware, that I can do it in a way that it's secure, that the risks are mitigated and are taken into consideration. And I want to deviate for a moment, just off topic. I do think that, I have this very controversial personal opinion that eventually some super intelligence that is an artificial intelligence will be the end of humanity. And the only reason I bring that up is that I'm very passionate about building small scale constrained AI that has usefulness as a tool. And so, at Stratorsoft, at Rex.ai, we take that very seriously in terms of the risks that come along with introducing AI into something like physical security. And I do also believe that eventually the usefulness will outweigh the concerns that people have with what we're dealing with here. This is like safety critical stuff, but so was the airplane. Like, the airplane killed a lot of people, but people didn't stop working on it. Self-driving vehicles are going to kill a lot of people. They have killed a lot of people, but that doesn't stop people from investing billions of dollars in it. And all that is to say that we totally acknowledge that there are inherent risks in this, but we want to do it in a safe way that improves efficiencies and makes something that's really useful, that helps everybody, that's so useful that like eventually people will want to use it. But yeah, I kind of got off topic a little bit there. We are very passionate about that. And what else do I have to say about the origin story? That's pretty much it. And now we have this concept validation, and we truly believe that it's scalable and that it will be usable in this industry. And we want to be the ones that are a part of that journey with the rest of the industry to see this innovation and this change.
John, if I could real quick,
Yeah.
it's been interesting, and we're in an interesting spot because, I think a lot of technology is built in our industry from the perspective of the manufacturer and not from the perspective of the end user. And then the end user has to conform to what the manufacturer's created. And so we wanted, once, Jeff built this prototype, which like he said, there's tremendous amount of technological feasibility that went into it. We decided to socialize the product to large end users in the industry to see like what they really thought about it, and do some more concept validation and concept feasibility on it. And it's very interesting in how like it's very clear for the end users that this is solving a problem for them. So now we're at a point where we can build this not necessarily just from our perspective, but from feedback from very large end users, right? And I think that's a very unique and special place to be in, because I don't think it happens often in this industry and in this space.
Two things I want to pull out, one from each of what you said. One, Jeff, you mentioned something that I think helps smooth the path towards adoption, is that obviously you've taken an intentionality around building security by design into your product. And even the way you articulate it was simple, concise, and straightforward. So some of those things, when people are like, we didn't just do a down and dirty proof of concept and throw it out there and make sure like this is a production ready version of the product that could be implemented in someone's system today. And it's mitigating the possible issues. You can't eliminate them all, but it's mitigating the best of their ability. When I worked at United Technologies aerospace segment, we did the same thing with connected devices and airplanes, right? Like could they be hacked? Theoretically. Like, could someone like hack into all the wireless connected systems that were in a plane? Theoretically. But you built them with as much redundancy and resiliency into the product as you could, so that would be drastically mitigated with fail safe, so that if it happened, you could make sure the impact was limited, meaning the plane would not come down. Adam, you mentioned something that I want to just really pull on and push out and shout from the mountaintops, is building it for the end user, and then getting direct end user validation, and actually taking software, like novel concept, use software development concepts when you're developing software. Meaning that I'm going to iterate on this, I'm going to show it to the market, get feedback, get their feedback into the product, iterate again, and then get it out there, versus waiting 18 to 24 months because that's the traditional development cycle for access control software in the marketplace. I think we're getting better. And as the cloud adoption increases, it'll continue to get better, because if you're not deploying, in my opinion, everybody should be working in more of like, sprint based 2 to 4 week, make changes and deploy it to your software. Don't wait 18 months to push out some big update that doesn't do shit. And so, looking at how many updates like Netflix gets, or any software like Apple iOS, like the way that software is deployed needs to be embraced by our industry more, so that we can create more value. And as hardware becomes, the value proposition of security technology hardware becomes diminished, meaning like you don't change your reader but once every 20 years. So where does the value come from? Software. And so but then to do that, you have to make sure you're continuously adding value and have that continuous delivery, that continuous development. So what you said really hit me on the fact that like you're built to do that, and you're not trying to say build it so that it's easy for an integrator to implement, though it seems like it would be if you chose that route. If an integrator wanted to get down with it and make it a part of their ecosystem, there's nothing preventing that. But at the same time, there's nothing preventing a large end user from saying, I'm going to buy this and deploy it and manage it. And I use it just like I use my chat GPT, and I'm used to that user experience. So this isn't going to be, I don't need a graduate degree to figure out how to configure this tool. It's just it's kind of commonsensical. How much of that thought process, and either one of you or both can answer this, when you think about the customer experience, how much thought process went into making this an easy tool for people to use?
So I'll take this first. I think we got lucky on this, and I think that this is an interesting, it's just it's interesting evolution of technology that's happening today. So again, with the introduction of ChatGPT, essentially what was created is the most lightweight interface, basic interface that a human can interact with, right? And if you think about it, that's what people want. They want just like very lightweight, easy to understand interfaces. So we're going from like these very beautiful, which I'll refer to as visual interfaces, back to this very basic chat experience, and it makes sense to people. And so just based on that characteristic that was kind of, again, brought to the world by ChatGPT, we can leverage that. Like we can leverage that with this product, and we don't have to think a lot about what that experience is. The experience needs to be some type of natural language interaction, whether it's chat or whether you're typing it, whether you're using your voice. But that's what it is. The person, all they need to know is you need to know how to speak natural language, right? And I think that's something that's very important, that we try to maintain that and not change the actual experience or the user interface too much. Now, there will be different types of user interfaces based on different use cases, but just based on what's happening in the world, going from very cool user interfaces that actually create complexity down to a very lightweight, usable natural language interface is very advantageous to us when thinking about what that experience looks like.
And for our audience who may not be as familiar with some of the terminology that we're using here today, natural language is conversational language versus coding, right? Is that what you would make the differentiating of, like, I don't have to code this in, I can just say, like, I'm not using Python, I'm just saying, hey, Rex, do this.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome. Good. So shifting gears slightly here a bit, but staying in the same vein of the technological innovation, what do you think? And Jeffrey, let's go to you on this one. What is the next? Now, notwithstanding the dominating takeover that will happen, and I unfortunately or fortunately tend to agree with your gloom projection. I'm just hoping that it's further out than I have to experience, but Moore's law is not in our favor. But in the meantime, while we're in control and the Matrix hasn't taken over, what's the next evolution that you see, and whether it's built on the back of what you guys have created and are developing, or something net new? Like, where do you see this heading as it pertains to the security industry, of like what the opportunity is when applying these, the usage of AI, machine learning, and these kind of concepts into the industry?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. So I have a very general answer that I use for the whole my view of the world, my worldview, and I think it applies the same to the physical security space. So I'm just going to talk about that. I have a quote that I always use, and so I say that I think that we're at like around 1992 or 1993 with the internet, and some people knew what it was, but not everyone knew that they would be doing everything in their life on the internet. They would be sending communication to their loved ones, they'd be shopping, they'd be travel planning, they'd be doing all this stuff on the internet. And so my vision is, and to sort of tie in with what Adam said, is that the other cliche I use is that I think 5 years, 10 years from now, everyone will be interfacing with their compute devices conversationally. So you'll be like Captain Kirk on the Enterprise, and you'll say, computer, run me a report, and computer, do this, and computer, do that. And so it's my opinion that every system that we have today, whether it's in physical security or otherwise, will sooner than later have a layer of conversation on top of it that drives it, or in the middle of it that drives it. And I think that can be applied to all parts of the business, not just the technology side, right? Like you can do it to the sales funnel. Like you can talk to any system that has data in it or that has a database behind it. Right now, you sort of have to be some kind of expert to get to unlock that data. And that's the business that we're in with our data analytics platform too, is like right now we see like people saying data is the new oil. There's untapped value in data. You need to drive value out of data. And to me, it stands to reason that if you can converse with your data without having to know special things about it, that you can get so much, you can drive so much value out of the data. And so to me, I think that that is where the future is going. And I'm going to steal some of Adam's thunder, but he just watched this keynote talk, and one of these really poignant things that was said is that like AI is not going to replace your job. AI is not going to replace your company. It's the companies that leverage AI are going to replace the companies that don't leverage AI. And the people that become well versed and learned in AI are going to take the jobs of the people that don't embrace AI. Like there's going to be this massive shift, I think, the way that we saw with the internet. And so, yes, we'll lose some jobs and we'll lose some companies, but it's not. I don't have a luddite view where the technology is going to be the thing that usurps us in the beginning. We can go back to my point later that it's going to usurp all of us eventually, but in the beginning, it's going to be about how do you become an expert in the application of this technology. I saw somewhere online somebody said that like people that have good mathematical skills are going to become it's going to become less important to have good math skills than it will be to have conversational skills, because the computers of the future, you're going to need to know how to prompt them. You're going to need to know how to speak to them very in a way that makes sense. And hopefully it gets to the point where you can just use your natural language, period, and you don't have to be that good at it. But in the beginning, we're going to see this inflection point where if you're really good at speaking, at the nuances of speaking to a computer, those are going to be the people that get ahead faster. And then I have one more point, just to throw it in there, is that the winners of this game are going to be, to me, the next step with large language models and conversational AI is going to be introducing agency, which Adam alluded to a little bit earlier. And the people that win this game will master agentic or agency with the AI. Right now, we see something like ChatGPT, and if you just use the basic interface, it really doesn't do, you can't like tell it to do 7 things and it will do 7 things necessarily. Like you can kind of tell it to read a paper and summarize it and distill it down. There's new things with like custom GPTs where they have actions, and you can tell it to take some actions on and use some tools, and that's sort of a bridge. But like no one's really fully cracked like something that you can like just give it a task, give it like a 2-week task, and just let it go to town for 2 weeks and do all of that. Like ChatGPT can't do that today. Rex AI can't do that today. Nothing can really do that today. There's some technical limitations as to why, but to me, that's going to be the next step. We are really going to see agents and teams of agents that replace conventional teams that we see that will carry out complex tasks that have a longer time scale than what we see things like ChatGPT do today. So that's my opinion on the future of the technology in general. And I think that there's a home for it in every system and every fundamental component of every business that operates within physical security.
There's a few things I want to jump on there, Jeff, that you highlighted. One, human history is cyclical. Look back at when we became an agricultural society, and then when we became a manufacturing and industrial society, and then when we became a connected society, and now we're going to become, maybe I'll call it an intelligent, artificially intelligent society, right? If you want to put a title on each one of these shift changes that takes place, again, like the same thing that happened each one of those previous times is going to happen again, meaning that you don't just like farming still exists today, right? That shit didn't go away. And if you want to just do it manually the same way it was done in the 1700s, you can. Or if you want to do it at scale with technology and then now we've then retroactively retrofit the agricultural era with manufacturing, and then technology, industrial technology, and now with intelligence, with connected devices. And then eventually now I mean, I see the commercials of the AI driven stuff that is out there doing, collecting all the corn and hay and doing all the field stuff, right? So it's the same thing that's happened in the past, just different version of it. And I guarantee you, if you went back and looked at, when Ford created the production line, people saying how bad it was and how it was going to totally destroy the working class and all that shit, right? Same. And so the same story gets told over and over again, and it's really about who can grasp it, believe in it, and adopt it in a way that is positive. Secondly, one of the things that you mentioned that really resonated with me is, for years, and as an end user, so I was a security manager and director and led a global security organization. And, I would talk to sales guys like Adam, and I'd be like, hey, can your product do this? It's on the roadmap. Custom answer for everything, right? Oh, it's on the roadmap. Yeah, we're thinking about, well, maybe blah, blah. Imagine being able to say, hey, Rex, can you make my system do this? Yes, give me 2 weeks and I'll develop the custom code to be able to. So like that's an interesting application of that agent that you talked about, where you can put it to work and say, I need to make it so X, Y, and Z can happen, whether it's like whatever, right? There's so many use cases that are available in access control system 1, but aren't available in access control system 2, and maybe they're a competitive advantage. All of a sudden, this software layer of intelligent capability becomes a great equalizer and removes some of the potential differentiation between systems. And that can be really scary for some people. So, it's an interesting, again, the winners are the ones who I think maybe disrupt themselves, which historically we have not done well in this industry. We're really afraid of our user base. We're really afraid of our channel dynamics. And we're afraid to bring innovation. So it usually comes from the outside in. Awesome, Jeff. Thank you. So Adam, same question. What do you see as, if anything different than what Jeff has shared, kind of that next evolution, that the next generation of applying the type of technology you guys are working on, or something we haven't talked about, to the security industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think you said this somewhere, John, but I think that this type of technology is going to transform the industry because it's going to make different players live in a different space within the industry. And what I mean by that is, all of a sudden, like, let's take access control manufacturers as an example. They are going to become the middleware layer. They are going to become and in some instances less significant, right? And no one's really going to care what system they have, because they're not looking at the capabilities or the limitations of it, because this new technology is giving them whatever whatever features they need. And I think that changes, that has a trickle down effect. It changes everything. It changes how those companies go to market. It changes what technology they're going to build. And I think that's, I don't know if people are thinking about that, but I think that's what's going to happen specific to our industry as these new technologies like generative AI are introduced. The importance of certain layers of the tech stack are going to be shifted and changed. And I don't know how that will play out, but I really think that that's going to happen.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And my ideation on that is that really there becomes two layers of technology that are significant. There's the kind of user interface layer, the layer of software that the security operator, whoever is managing the system, participates in, and then the identity, digital, physical, credential on the other side, and that becomes what matters. And those are the software, and even those become more ambiguous and open, right? Like I believe there is a world where our identity becomes associated with us, that we give it access to the relationships we want. Meaning that when I onboard a new company, a part of my I-9 process is opening up my digital identity in my Apple Wallet or whatever, Google Wallet, whatever, and saying, now it's connected to your system. and you can validate my whole identity is there, right? So you can do my whole background and everything can be done. That shakes hand on whether it's the, you know, some sort of decentralized identification based on blockchain. Like that's already happening. It exists today. So it's just opening it up and allowing that to happen. And now I can either get issued a physical credential or use my mobile device to get in wherever I need to. And then that software layer, and then really the integrator has to become more of a ISV, software service vendor. And the hardware is just plug and play, right? I think we're there today if we wanted to. You can take a Raspberry Pi, plug it into a reader, throw it up in a ceiling, and connect it to a server, and you have an access control system. And where we hold on to these legacy beliefs of how things have to be architected, but it's we're way closer than we think to it being a lot simpler and being a software industry versus a hardware industry. And there's a lot. The hard part is there's a lot of companies, a lot of people, and a lot of folks that are stuck in that hardware layer that if they don't figure this out, you know, like you alluded to, Jeff, like maybe that's the unintended consequences of innovation here. But hey, it's the same, you know, there was a lot of people that were making, you know, hay, like, you know, push hay barrel makers back in the 1700s, and then they got real pissed when somebody put a motor on one, right? So like this is a natural evolution. Well,
I had one other thought real
yeah,
quick. Sorry to interrupt you. So I think another thing that's happening is a lot of these technologies that are being created are helping create interoperability across multiple systems. And I think that historically in our space, that's not advantageous to a lot of these companies that own a massive amount of the market share. So it's going to be very interesting in if they start to develop technology that creates interoperability with their competitors, because that's a need within the industry, or if they just try to create new technology that only serves their flavor of technology in a silo. And I think that's going to be a major thing that a lot of organizations have to consider, and how they adopt it and how they embrace it or not.
it's such a good point. And it's been a pain point and a pinch point for the last, you know, 20 years in the industry. You know, this whole concept of proprietary versus open, which is a whole nother conversation, and has its fallacies because there's no such thing as open today, as much as people want to participate and pretend there is, unless you apply a product like what we're talking about that creates the open, which is completely agnostic to
That's
what you
right.
have under the hood, right? That's the
That's
only
right.
way, in my opinion, where open is truly open. Well, gentlemen, I really appreciate your time here. I want to give you maybe you know, each a couple minutes if there's any kind of last comments that you had, anything you want to leave the listeners with, or any closing discussions you want to have. And Adam, we'll start with you, and then Jeff will let you close it out.
So once again, thank you so much for having us on. We appreciate it. I would just really encourage all the users to really look into generative AI, understand what agency means, what agentic AI is. We obviously believe that it's the future, generally speaking, but definitely within our industry. And if we continue to level up from a sophistication level, these products are going to be more widely adopted. They're going to be more beneficial to people, and it's just going to make everybody's lives a little bit better, hopefully. So yeah, I appreciate it, John.
Yeah, my pleasure. Jeff, how about you?
Yeah, no, like Adam said, I just want to reiterate the thanks for having us on. Appreciate it. I just want to leave the listeners with, I've been toying around with this idea of trying to build more of a community in the industry regarding conversational AI and large language models. So I haven't really figured out how we're going to do that yet. But I mean, I've even thought of maybe open sourcing some projects and really just trying to grassroots build a community. So if anybody listening is interested in AI, passionate about AI, whatever, especially in terms of physical security, look us up online, DM us on LinkedIn. I don't know, Adam's usually the guy who I point people to, but we're available online, stratorsoft.com. Drop us a note, hit us up on LinkedIn, because I think it would be great to build out a very strong community within the industry that sort of opens people's eyes and brings light to this idea of AI in our space. Thanks,
Well,
John.
Jeff, I offer you this. I have a community built out on my website that is available for everybody. We can add a sub community in it, and it's totally free. Anybody can join. Right now, the channels are really, and it's not Slack, but it's something similar, but it's a web application people can log into. We can add an AI for security one on there, let people join, and it can be anybody who wants in. There's no cost, no anything, because I know there's other communities that friends that we have in the industry offer that gives you access to Slack channels and things like that. There's a cost associated with it. I'm happy to help facilitate this and build it out on your behalf, and just let people come and congregate. We can work on that together.
That would be great. I'm totally sold. I'm in. I'm a big fan of what you're doing with the communities that you're creating. And again, this is just something that an idea I've been toying with, and there's no secret agenda here. We're not trying to generate any revenue or anything from this, or charge people for it. It's really just want to organically build the community. So I'd love to take you up on that offer. Let's talk about it offline, and let's just try to see if we can sort of grassroots it and maybe build up a community of people using your platform. Sounds
Awesome.
great.
Let's do it. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate again, I want to acknowledge both the perseverance, the kind of like humble grit and focus that you guys have had to continue to innovate and attempt to drive that innovation into an industry that's not known for it. To try and not be successful, meaning you put things out in the marketplace and keep going, and then have kind of that aha moment, and not be afraid to try again. And I think there's a lesson everyone can learn, whether you're a technologist or just an average person who is going to go through those ups and downs, who is going to learn from it. We alluded to this earlier, asking yourself the question, what am I meant to learn from this? If you're in a situation where you're not feeling the best, where things aren't going right, there's always an opportunity to take a step back and learn from it, and move forward with a little bit more intelligence than you had before. And then hopefully in the future, you can have a conversation with the chatbot, and they can really help you learn what you were supposed to learn from that.
Absolutely.
So,
Right
appreciate
on.
it, gentlemen. Thank you most so much for your time. Look forward to
Thanks,
continuing
John.
the conversation with you. Go do great things.
Thanks.